edits in here?
Yes.
All set, Marty.
And which ones are those?
Great, thank you. It's 7 a.m. and I'm calling...
PM.
PM. Thank you.
Wow, you're...
Where did that come from? 7
Japanese
p.m. and I'm calling the Hamilton Planning Board October 11th meeting to order. On our agenda tonight is a review of the Chabaco Hill Capital Partners LLC's application for a special permit, as well as its application for a stormwater management permit. And we will be reviewing the draft decision and making any appropriate revisions to those documents, following which, if all goes well, we can entertain, or I can entertain, a motion to approve the form of the decision incorporating the revisions of various members. So with that said, I will take roll. So when I call your name, would you please indicate that you're present? I know Emil is appearing via Zoom. Emil Dahlquist,
Emil Dahlquist present.
Jonathan Poor,
Jonathan Poor, present.
Bill Wheaton,
Bill Wheaton, present.
Rick Mitchell,
Present.
Richard Boroff,
Richard Boroff, present.
Pat Norton,
Present.
and Marnie Crouch present. Is Elizabeth Herr on Zoom?
Yeah, I'm present.
Great. So I think we can dive right in. I think my edits were the first ones appearing in the package, so we might as well take a look at them. They are on,
Excuse me, Madam Chair, before we get started, I don't see Emil's edits in here, and just so,
His are right after Marnie's
Oh,
in the
okay.
stack.
they're in a stack, so I think it was my edits, then Emil's edits, then Bill's edits, and your edits.
1, 2, 3.
And we're supposed to read all three copies at the same time?
You have the original draft, and we'll look at the edits and ascertain whether or not to accept them. So the edits that I made to the draft that Patrick sent you, I believe, last week, mine begin on page 17, the very last paragraph, and the sentence where I made a change states, "The applicant estimated the number of truck trips for the Bentley Warren trucks hauling rock from the site, namely 4,324 trips leaving and 4,324 entering the site, but it did not provide any," and I added the word "reliable estimates of traffic for any of the other trucks and equipment that would be required to enter and leave the site over the 4-year period of construction." And so what I added was the footnote. And so I think it's self-explanatory. And so I wonder if anyone has any objection to the addition, really, of that footnote.
Where is your
Page
footnote?
17.
It's on page 17.
Footnote number
Is
13.
footnote 13, the very last line.
Wait, 13 or 12?
It's footnote 13 is the addition. It's underlined.
I see, I don't see page, footnote 13. I have on page 17?
Right, it's among the edits. I did make copies where I,
There was a copy in your package.
this is,
Page 17.
this is double-sided.
I'm in the wrong stack?
This is the,
And this will make it easier to...
Okay.
No more paper for me. Got my own.
Bill, were you able
God
to
damn,
locate
you're
it?
holding my hand here, Patrick, and I appreciate it.
And Jonathan?
so I'm in your
Marnie Crouch
the
edits.
stormwater decision?
Thank you.
Pardon me?
Stormwater
Fine.
decision.
No, we're doing the special permit.
Okay, so, because with the special permit, I agree with Richard, it's footnote 12.
Where, there's a whole
under
different
Emil
page,
Dahlquist.
17. That's
I
the
don't have
problem.
that. I don't have Emil Dahlquist
Way back.
edits.
Yes, you do.
It's in a section that starts
You
with
probably combined it.
this right here.
Marty's is on-
Jonathan?
He can't see it.
Thank you.
I made an extra copy.
You're looking at the original one at the front, John.
Yeah, the way that I assembled the package, there's the original decision for the senior housing special permit, which is then followed by the application for the stormwater
Got it.
management permit.
Got it?
Got it?
Okay.
Marty, yeah, you got it right there.
Yep.
Then individual board members, as they submitted information relative to edits, you see them, I have them in order that they came to me, and they've all been printed out for you.
All set, got it.
You got it?
Yep.
And Pat, you have it as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Madam, how do you propose that we go through each set of edits and approve them?
Yes. I don't
And-
think we have to vote on them. Is Robin Stein here?
Yes.
Would we have to vote on approval of the edits that we're making, or can we just rely on a final vote to approve the form of decision?
I think you can just confirm if anybody has any objection to any particular one as you discuss them. But as long as a majority of the board is not opposed to making the change, I think at the end, you can just take a vote to approve the form of the decision with the revisions discussed and agreed to tonight. And then that can be finalized.
Okay.
For the sake of folks watching who don't have the papers that were handed out to the board at the meeting tonight, I would just ask that you just read the changes. Or I don't know if it's possible to screen share the documents, but I know the board got them in hard copy, and obviously I don't think no one else would have them at this point. So if you could just read them, that'd be good.
Okay, so I read the amendment to the sentence. The footnote reads as follows. The applicant's attorney at the February 8, 2022 meeting stated that there would be 400 truckloads relating to the septic system and between 46 and 50 truckloads at the site itself, multiplying 5, the number of workdays per week, times 52, the number of weeks in a year, times 4, the best-case scenario for the duration of the project, yields 52,000 truckloads of materials entering the site for the duration of the project. It is unclear whether the number of truckloads accounted for the 8,648 Bentley Warren round trips to Export Ledge. So that was my only change. So does anyone have any objection to the inclusion of that footnote?
Nope.
No?
No objection here.
No, nope, no objection there.
So, Emil, in the package, your edits were next after mine. So do you want to review your edits?
Sure. The, on page 3, down at the bottom, second to the last line, removal of approximately 800,000 cubic yards of granite ledge on the 16-acre development portion of the site to replace 40 feet, which was the original. 40 feet of granite could mean a lot of things. It's a linear dimension, and I think you wanted something more volumetric. So I put in the actual number taken from Mr. Durkin's chart of material to be excavated and to leave the site. Page 4, same thing about in the first paragraph, third line from the bottom of that paragraph, again with removal of 80,000 cubic yards of rock and other material from the site. So virtually the same edit there.
I think we'll stop there. Does anyone have a problem replacing what I had initially inserted, the 40 feet of granite with 80,000 cubic yards in those two places?
Emil's is more accurate?
Yes. Okay, page 15, I think, is your next change, Emil?
Yep, page 15, it's 1, 2, 3, the fourth paragraph down, beginning in section point D, point 2, point 2 of the rules and regulations. Second sentence, the project design entails the use of, the change is, a 48-inch thick layer on average across 14 acres of site crushed stone to serve as a substrate for construction of units. That replaces just the 48 inches, which again is not quite clear. And I think this edit clears it up a bit in terms of what is intended in this comment.
I agree. Does
I
any-
agree.
Agree.
Pat, do you agree?
Agreed.
Page 16 at the top, this is the most extensive one, and it's at the very top
16.
paragraph. With respect to lighting pollution, there are 3 types to address. Now, this one I rewrote pretty much the whole thing, primarily because I was the one, I think, who made this this matter. I was the one who kind of brought it up during the findings or deliberations. So when I read the initial verbiage, it didn't quite capture, wasn't quite clear enough in terms of what actually is going on. So if I may, I'll read the paragraph. With respect to lighting pollution, there are 3 types to address: trespass, glare, and intensity. The applicant submitted photometric data showing a 0-foot candle level on the ground surface at the property lines for the street lighting to address the trespass matter. However, the cumulative effect from all lighting sources, including the 16-foot high street fixtures with a 5% plus or minus cutoff shield, as well as other lighting sources not submitted for approval, including entrance fixtures, yard flood lighting, sidewalk safety illumination, and housing interior lighting, have not been submitted for review. Because of the highly concentrated development area and the various numbers, locations, and intensity of all illumination sources, 2 pollutants, glare and intensity, will be unmitigated. This is not a problem that can be simply solved by applying project conditions for approval. Sharper cutoff luminaires will not mitigate pollution exacerbated by steep slopes and clear cutting of mature forests. Sharper cutoff angles or lower fixture heights will require more street luminaires for an equivalent lighting level, which means more, not less lighting. In addition, because of the development placement in the pre-existing dark neighborhood with little artificial lighting, the highly lit development on the hill will stand in contrast to the neighboring properties. So that's my edit for that paragraph.
And that's much more detailed and accurate than what I had included in the draft. So
I support this
I
edit.
have no problem with that.
Yeah, I would totally agree. There's going to be a huge glow in the evening from this facility, no matter what you do.
And Pat, are you on board as well?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, next page is page 18, Emil.
Page 18, right, bottom of the second paragraph, the sentence beginning, the ambient noise level at the property line unquestionably would increase dramatically, and then my edit is certainly far in excess of the noise pollution standard of an additional 10 decibel level above the ambient level of 30 to 35 decibels for a country road.
Absolutely. Agree with that completely.
I agree as
Okay.
well.
Agree.
Pat?
Agreed.
Okay.
And then, did you have anything on page 20?
I didn't, I'm not sure why it was included, but I had no edits on that page.
Okay. And I think,
My edits-
Bill, you're next.
My edits are very simple. Page 2, but actually fairly important. Page 2, top of the paragraph. Appearance at such conferences neither constitutes, that is the petitioner's appearance at a conference, neither constitutes approval of senior housing development, and the actual word should be nor a guarantee that a special permit will be granted. And the original had not. I think there was purely a typo.
Oh, yeah, that's
R and T are right next to each other on the keyboard, but it's important.
It's very important. I mean, look for typos. I mean, In speaking with Robin, I did point out that even the United States Supreme Court has typos in their opinions, but they just withdraw them and replace them with more accurate ones. But typos plague all writers, so please, I would never be offended with someone pointing out a typo to me.
That's all I had.
So I think we're all on board on that one. Page 3.
I didn't have anything on page 3. It looks like this,
That was
what's
a
page 3?
Neil's.
Amos.
It's Amos.
Amos.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, Bill, you took my, my edit and used it as maybe a template.
I see, so it got double counted.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Right.
that is my only change.
That was your only edit?
Yes.
Oh, so these were then, Amos got counted twice. What about page 21? Was that one of your edits, Emil?
I think it is.
Oh, that was mine. Yeah, that was the page 21. I'm sorry about that. The first paragraph, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines down. Vehicles of varying sizes associated with construction using Tobacco Road, Essex Street, and other streets in Hamilton and immediately adjacent communities, not just the haul route proposed for Bentley Warren trucks. And the comment there was to say these roads carry into adjacent towns, and therefore adjacent towns or communities will be affected by the traffic increases around here, not just the town of Hamilton.
I have no problem with that. Does anyone else?
I support it.
I support it too.
Okay, so I think Jonathan,
Okay. On page 3, Emil already really picked up the subject better than I did, so I would ignore my page 3 edits in terms of quantity of granite. Page 15 with the light fixtures, he picked that up as well, so you can ignore my comments.
We should ignore yours.
Ignore 15, ignore
use
page
his.
15, yep. I guess the only thing on page 15, and maybe Emil, you can correct me if you already got this, but it says, the water, this is the second paragraph down about in the middle. That water would hit the ledge and move in any conceivable direction. Is that still in there? It is.
Yes.
Okay, so I changed that to, in my markup, it says, that water would hit the ledge and move in any direction the ledge is pitched toward, and potentially into wetlands in unpredictable concentrations. So that's slightly different wording than what was there. What was there, it said in any conceivable direction. Well, it's not any conceivable direction, it's whatever the remaining pitch of the blasted ledge is.
okay.
And then the important point is it's all going into the wetlands. The point here is it's changing the direction and concentration and speed, really, of the water. So I said in unpredictable concentration. So that's written in my markup. So that's in the middle of page 15. Are you
So
following that?
That's the one we keep and we.
I think, yeah, everything
ignore
else
the
Emil
others.
caught better than my markups.
Bill, are you okay with that, using Jonathan's wording?
I didn't change
Yeah, I think
Emil's.
that's, I like the,
Okay.
I like those changes. Yeah.
So other than that, on the rest of my marks on page 15, I would defer to Emil's. They're more succinct.
It's just the amendment of that one particular sentence.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, good. Okay, page 21. Let's see. I don't know how many paragraphs down. It's like the fourth, fifth paragraph down. Third sentence, as designed, it says 730 linear feet. I changed that to as designed 710 linear feet of buffer is disturbed. You might even want to say approximately 710 linear feet of buffer is disturbed. over and above what would be reasonably required for a curb cut. That's important, because it's 760 linear feet if you ignore the curb cut, but need to allow for some disturbance of the frontage to make for a curb cut. So it'd be approximately 710 linear feet of buffers disturbed over and above what would reasonably be required for a curb cut. And that's what my insert says. And then I gave a reference of which drawings you'd look at to find that information, and this is going to repeat over and over again. So it's at the bottom of the sheet, it says, this is indicated in applicant's drawings C13, C14, C15, C16 of C32 erosion control plans.
So just to be clear, so C13 through 16 are part of C32?
Each one, if you were to write that all out, you'd probably say it's C13 of C32 erosion control plan, C14 of C32 erosion control plan, if you were to write it all out, if that needs to be done.
Well, I'll put all of.
Yes, I was going to say, after C16, you
Say
could say
all
all of.
Yeah, all of, yes, C32.
Oh,
Because
that's
each
good.
title block says that on it. It's just a repetition in the title block.
Right. I think if we say all of, that's
Okay.
clear.
And this is going to repeat a couple times. Okay, page 22, third paragraph down. The only amenity for residents is the trail system and is not readily accessible to residents unless they access the trails at the entrance or traverse areas adjacent to riprap rather than areas of riprap. The applicant doesn't have people walking on riprap, they have people walking next to riprap,
Okay.
just to be precise about that. Then the third to last paragraph talks about 1,650 linear feet of riprap visible and sometimes abutting trails. I just put down approximately 1,650. And then, again, the same reference, see applicant's drawings, C13, C14, C15, C16. Whoops, there's a typo in my typos here. I should say C16, not C6.
Don't you love that?
Of C42,
Do it again.
all of C42 erosion control plan. Exactly the same reference.
Okay, I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with that either.
Oh, looks good. Looks good.
You're good? Okay.
Okay. And then page 25.
You have C32 on the previous. C32 and C42. Where we,
Let's see. I know where I can check that.
sorry, are we just referring to those 4 drawings, or is it,
It's all the same drawings.
it's the 4 drawings, though, isn't it?
Yes, it's all the same 4 drawings.
Not all of, I think there was a confusion part of all of C32. You're talking about 4 drawings that are part of,
Oh, part of instead of all of? Is that more accurate?
Well, the title of each drawing, if you want to do it thoroughly, it would be C13 of, it's in the title block, the title of the drawing is C13 of C42 erosion control plan. That is the formal title of the drawing.
I'll do that.
It's long, but
so there's 4 drawings, Jonathan.
with that same title, just, it goes
Yeah, is
13,
it
14, 15,
42 or
16.
32?
That's what I got to double check. My apologies.
I think it's all.
42. It's 42.
So we go back to page 21 and change 32 to 42,
Okay.
as well as changing,
I'm going to change, I'm going to make it
The whole thing.
consistent.
Yeah.
It will read C13 of C42 erosion control plan. It'll be awkward, a little bit awkward,
Yeah,
but
it's
it will
just
be accurate.
lengthy but accurate.
Exactly.
Yep. Okay. Page 25, fourth paragraph down, middle of the paragraph. Moreover, and more importantly, consideration of integration of the project into the site instead of its imposition upon it, I wrote, is required as the first step rather than ranked, because ranked is what the stormwater management bylaw standards say. They rank it as the first step, whereas the senior housing bylaw just requires it as a first step.
If
So
that's
that was
more-
a subtle difference, but I
It's more accurate.
It is
and
more
I would
accurate.
agree with that.
Okay.
Bill?
Right.
I didn't want to overstep into stormwater.
Okay.
So everybody okay with that?
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
fine with it.
Yes.
Okay. And then page 26, first paragraph. In the applicant's proposed plans, steep slopes are disturbed, as well as approximately 710 linear feet instead of 760. 710 linear feet of the required vegetated buffer zone. So I added the word required, and I changed the number 760 to 710. And again, the reason for that is that I've allowed 50 feet for a reasonable curb cut. So the total disturbance is 760 less 50 gives you 710. That's how that number keeps reappearing. And that's in a it's all in a chart in my written findings, which you have a record of. Then that goes on, and I struck, in addition to the 230 linear feet of disturbance at the entrance off Tobacco Road. That's a double count there. That 230 is included in the 710.
Okay.
So you could, if you wanted to mention the disturbance specifically on Tobacco Road, you'd have to subtract the 230 from the 710, and then you could write the sentence that way.
No, we'll leave it.
But you can't double count.
We'll leave it your way. And where does the reference go? See applicant's drawings, is that,
And that should be at the end of that. Just before thus the applicant did not comply, I would insert just before that, see applicant's drawings, and then the same note,
after section 8.2.22,
period.
reference?
Yes, reference applicant's drawings, C13 of C42, C14, and so on, erosion control plan. Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Everybody else?
Yes.
Yep.
Fine.
Yes, I'm fine with it.
Okay, then the second paragraph, second sentence, open space in the development area itself is predominantly steeply sloped lawns. I just added the word steeply sloped. That's it.
So you would want to remove adjacent steep lawns with adjacent steep slopes, because you're saying the same thing twice,
There,
sort of.
no, I'm not. It's, good question. Okay, I'll read the whole sentence. Open space in the development area itself is predominantly steeply sloped lawns with adjacent steep slopes. They're together. So you have undisturbed steep slopes and you have new steep slopes with that are steeply sloped lawns. It's two steep slopes put together. It's not duplication. So that's intentional in that sentence.
Okay, so Pat, did you have any revisions to the draft?
No revisions on my end. You guys captured it well. I apologize, but going back to your footnote on 13, 17, you're, I guess, just trying to quantify the number of trips that's not been accounted by the applicant. Is it in this?
Right. The attorney for the applicant, she just, she provided no basis for the number, but she said 40 to 6 to 50 truckloads per day. But it was unclear what that included, unclear whether that included Bentley Warren. But
Yeah.
I just used it as an example of the volume of truck traffic that was conceivably going to be taking place, not just on Tobacco Road,
Yeah.
but in the whole adjacent neighborhood.
Because it might be, I guess it might be a misrepresentation of the project I think it's unreasonable to expect that there's going to be 50 truckloads for a period of 4 years,
Every day.
5 days a week for 52 weeks a year. I think it's probably a guess. That might be a max, like, at peak mobilization, they might get that many people on the site, but I don't even see, that would be tough to imagine over a 4-year period to establish this site. And it might just be a misrepresentation of what they would estimate.
So would you just then
I would say that it's essentially, I think you're making a good point, right? It's unclear what the traffic impact's going to be over the duration of the project. We know it will be significant, but it hasn't been accurately quantified.
maybe
Given
what,
their staffing plan for what it takes to establish a site over the project duration itself has been up for, to contest, but I just don't know if this is an accurate.
all right, what you're suggesting is taking out the second sentence that starts multiplying and just eliminate that sentence
I
and
think
leave the rest?
I think so, because I think you make it clear in that you're saying it's not reliable estimates that have been provided on what's the expectation for the period of the project and how many traffic, whatever, truckloads are going to be.
I understand what you're saying. Jonathan and Bill?
I would concur with Patrick.
Yeah, I would too.
So we'll eliminate that one sentence
I
that
think we
starts-
should eliminate the sentence beginning and multiplying.
Okay,
Agreed.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
sure,
Can I ask it?
sure.
Okay. Do we know for certain that they will be working 52 weeks a year? Some companies shut right down for X number of weeks for a complete company vacation period.
We're taking that sentence out. So we don't know whether they're working a 5-day week or a 6-day week. It was never really specified.
That's another whole, that changes the whole numberage also.
Right, so we're eliminating that one sentence because it was potentially
I
misleading.
mean, I don't think then the footnote will not contain an estimate of the whole project.
Right, it will just be
It'll
her
just be 40 to
estimate
50 a
of
day.
46 to 50 truckloads a day for an unspecified duration.
That's right.
We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for that. That's much more accurate. So I think we have gone through all the edits, and so at this juncture, I think that I can entertain a motion to approve the form of the decision regarding Chabaco Hill Capital Partners LLC's application for a special permit, subject to the inclusion of all the revisions that we discussed. And I will also add, if you will give me license to correct any typos or scrivener's error that I may see in the final proofreading. No one picked up on anything, but if I see something, like, not infrequently, I will type form instead of from. So it would be something as innocuous as that, just a typo. I would make no substantive changes at all. But since no one really saw any typos to speak of, I doubt that I would find any, but you never know. So if that's agreeable, I will entertain a motion.
What are we going to motion? Because you've been, I don't mean this is just an observation. You said a whole bunch of things here, but I'm not sure now what the motion is.
It's a motion to approve the form of the decision with the inclusion of all the revisions that we just discussed.
Then I move to approve the decision with all the changes made at this meeting.
Do I have a second?
I second that motion.
So we'll do a roll call vote. Jonathan Poor,
Aye.
Bill Wheaton,
Aye.
Emil Dahlquist,
Aye.
Rick Mitchell,
Aye.
Richard Boroff,
Aye.
Pat Norton,
Aye.
and Marnie Crouch, aye. And I neglected to indicate at the outset, and I will do it now, Pat Norton, who is an associate member, is entitled to vote on this application owing to the election, and our newest member, Elizabeth Herr, was not on the planning board when the special permit hearings began. So I will now, did I indicate my affirmance as well? So Marnie Crouch, aye, and so it's unanimous.
Marnie, before you move on, it's Robin Stein from KP Law. Do you want to just confirm everyone on the board is going to be around and available to sign the decision? Or do you want to have a different method of signing it?
If I were to get these revisions incorporated into the draft tomorrow, Patrick, could you then print it out and have it available for members to come in and sign it?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. It just, you have a short window, obviously, before the 24th, so I just wanted to confirm.
Right, we do have a fair amount of time, but if I get these changes made first thing tomorrow, I can forward the final version to Patrick, and then he can print it out and have it here in the memorial room so members can come in and sign it.
Yep, and then you'll just get filed with the town clerk and send out to the applicant and what have you, but we can talk about that later.
Okay.
And please also remember just to add the final vote, obviously that it was 7-0 and who voted, just so in that final section.
7-0, yes. Okay.
Send everyone's names too, just like the vote above it.
Do I need to do
Thank you.
something else? Are you suggesting some other? It was unanimous.
Yes, the statute requires you to list the vote and who voted. So we always put the names of everyone as well.
In the draft?
Yeah, it's exactly, I'll connect with you later about it, just to tell you how to add it.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
And so now we can turn to the
Stormwater permit?
stormwater permit. So it appears that there were no proposed revisions to this draft decision except for the most egregious typographical error in the caption, which was just remarked on and not really the subject of any formal revision. But does anyone have any comments or want to discuss this at all, or are we satisfied with it and we can go to a vote?
I have no comments.
No comments,
No comment
yeah.
here? I didn't find anything.
Nope, no comment.
No.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion to approve the form of the decision regarding the application of Tobacco Hill Capital Partners LLC for a stormwater management permit,
Including 2 Rs in the word stormwater.
with the correction, stormwater, yes. If you're going to do a typographical error, you might as well make it a really good one, right in the caption. Okay, so do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, roll call vote. Jonathan Poor,
Aye.
Bill Wheaton,
Aye.
Emil Dahlquist,
Aye.
Rick Mitchell,
Aye.
Richard Boroff,
Aye.
Pat Norton,
Aye.
Marnie Crouch, aye, so it's unanimous. So I will make these revisions as quickly as possible, and you will have the draft decision, tomorrow's Wednesday. Hopefully, it will be in the memorial room on Thursday, and it can be, members can come in and sign it before our next meeting. So it can then be filed with the clerk, and we will have completed this marathon. I think Rick said it was going to be a marathon, not a sprint, and he was,
Madam Chairman, I would like to make one more motion.
okay?
I would like to have the board give thanks to you personally for yeoman's work in preparing a superb set of decisions. And, you know, it was an enormous amount of work, and it was an extremely professional and good job, and I think we owe you a round of thanks for doing this. So I make that motion.
I heartily second it.
Do we really need a motion for this?
No, I don't think so. I think we can just thank you for your work.
I think,
Thank you, Marty.
I
Thank
don't
you.
know how I could do a roll call vote on that, but I appreciate those comments very much. It means a lot to me, so.
Okay.
So now we can actually move on to something that I don't think will generate a lot of controversy. Patrick, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we have a notice of intent with respect to property at 862 Bay Road, and apparently a portion of this 13.3 acre parcel, namely 5.69 acres, was chapter land, and the owners apparently no longer wish to have that part of the parcel included as chapter land. I would imagine it interferes with their sale or potential sale of the property. So I think it's up to the board to make a recommendation to the select board about whether or not the town should, in any way, shape, or form, attempt to purchase this 5.69 acres, and it's my understanding there's no frontage on Bay Road. So, Patrick, I don't know if you can maybe educate us about this, but it would seem to me that this would not be something that the select board would need to consider in depth, because I don't know that the town would have any surplus funds in its budget to purchase 5.69 acres of land that has no frontage on Bay Road.
Yeah, it is not connected to other municipal operations or open space. In my opinion, I'm recommending to the board that we allow the owner to pursue the transition that they choose. It's not a property that would bring value to the community in terms of open space, municipal functions, capital improvements, et cetera. You know, and as you mentioned, it's not fronting on a roadway to where it would have any utility for a municipal purpose. So I'm recommending that the board advise the Board of Selectmen that we have no recommendation to pursue it.
Okay, well, I will entertain a motion then
Could
for
we
the...
hold on there? Could you identify what piece of the the acreage that is being taken out of 61A? Because it's not apparent on anything I have.
I think it's Exhibit B.
Well, it gives the properties that are supposedly producing revenue under 60, which is required under 61A, but it doesn't identify the 5.69 acres that they're giving up.
Yeah, I believe as you look at Exhibit B, it is the rectangular square that you see on the left-hand side of the photograph.
Okay, lower left.
There's a
Lower
whole
left.
lot of, that one, okay, or,
It looks like it's the piece that it's adjacent to the house. Is that the one you're referring to?
It is adjacent, but it does not include any structures in it.
No, I understand. I'm just trying to understand on this map,
Right.
the piece they're giving up. So they're going to retain the other 3 properties in 61A.
As I understand it, yes.
Okay.
And how big is this piece? Because it's hard to tell from this picture here.
I believe it is 5.69 acres
Okay.
out of the overall 13.33.
Okay. That doesn't, I don't think, is it one of the blocks that are outlined in white? It can't be, that doesn't sound like it's big enough.
Right, it does not include those.
Okay, so is it this big?
It's
the lower-
Yeah, that's what I was describing.
It's this one, this one here.
Yes,
It's not this one. Can't be, these are too small. These, what I just asked, it's not the white ones. It's this
Correct.
big rectangular one, or square one way up here, right there.
right.
Okay.
Ah,
Thank you.
okay, thank you
Yeah.
for that.
Up at the top, Rick, up at the top of the
I get it, I get it,
picture?
I get it. It's not outlined other than probably being mowed.
Yeah. So, or that may be a fence or something or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
These are buildings.
Well, Patrick, you can confirm that there's no frontage on Bay Road. That's, to me, is the
Absolutely.
important
Yeah.
point here.
That's accurate.
So, Patrick, just a clarification, when it comes out of a 61A, are the owners required to pay back the difference in taxes that they
No.
were able to avoid?
That's my understanding that they must,
Yeah,
as part of that changeover from conservatory land to market land.
yeah. That's my understanding, but I just didn't know whether I was wrong or not.
Yeah, I think it says something in there about that they're going to. I don't remember where I saw it, but I think I've seen it.
Okay, thank you.
The only benefit I've seen for plot of land of this size, and it looks like an orientation where it might be able to receive a ground mount solar array. I don't know if the town has any, or if any other entity would have some kind of interest in developing something like that, but that's really the only thing I could see that be applied here. It looks to be a pretty open field that's well lit, and
Well, the town, I think, has they have something in the nature of a right of first refusal on that.
That's
Yes.
correct.
yeah.
Do they really have, I don't think they have to pay back
Oh, I think they do have
the
to,
taxes that
do.
were deferred, so it's not an exemption, it's a deferral?
it's a deferral.
It's a deferral.
61A and
They're
B,
taxed at a lower rate, but if they decide to
to sell.
forego it, they must repay the difference between what it would have gotten at a full rate as opposed to the,
Over all the years.
okay. Those are my questions.
So I think the consensus is that we,
Marty, can I ask a question?
Oh, sure.
I don't have a copy of that site plan, but I assume it's been prepared by a registered and signed and sealed land surveyor on that map. Is that true? There seems to be a lot of concern about
It's an assessor's map.
reading the content of the plan, site plan. I just wondered, there should be a prepared plan that's signed and sealed by a registered land surveyor.
It's an assessor's map, it's not a survey.
Yeah.
Is that all that's required?
Yeah, they don't include or require surveyors.
No, because the assessor map is really a plus or minus, as you all know.
Absolutely.
Okay.
do I have a motion to recommend to the select board to forego a right of first refusal and to permit the owner to pursue its conversion of chapter land to residential use?
I make a motion to approve the owner's request to give up the Say it again, Marnie, please.
To recommend to the select board that it doesn't seem feasible for the town to exercise its right of first refusal.
The town will
and then
not
to
exercise its
permit
right for
the owner
first
to-
refusal and allow the property owner to sell the property
Well,
and develop it.
It's not what's being proposed.
they're just converting it from chapter land to residential.
Okay.
They're not intending to develop it.
Convert it from Chapter 61 to
Residential.
residential use.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Jonathan Poor,
Aye.
Bill Wheaton,
Aye.
Emil Dahlquist,
Aye.
Rick Mitchell,
Aye.
Richard Boroff,
Aye.
Elizabeth Herr,
Aye.
and Marnie Crouch, aye. Unanimous. Okay, and I think our next order of business is to approve the minutes for September 13th.
September.
Is there any discussion with respect to those minutes?
I have some comments. I need to find them first, though.
Hey, Marty, do you need me to hang on for anything? If not, I'm gonna sign off for the night.
Oh, I think your services are no longer required, and that's not
thank
a
you.
commentary on their value. So
Have a
thank
good
you
night.
for your help. Good night.
All right, thank you.
So I have some written notations for the minutes. Should we go through them verbally, or?
Sure, you could go through them verbally, and since these are minutes, not a decision that's going to be subject to an appeal, I assume that you could just forward me whatever comments you have, and I could make
Well,
amendments
then
to
do
them.
they need discussion, or should I just
Oh, just tell us what they are.
quickly? Okay.
Sure.
Well, page 2, to spell my name correctly.
Whereabouts did I?
Second to last paragraph.
Written enough times.
Oh, my God.
And then, same sentence, created similar neighborhood, and I inserted the word environmental concern rather than just neighborhood concern.
Whereabout is that?
So it's right under my misspelled name,
Oh, created.
created similar neighborhood, and then insert environmental concern and controversy. Page 7, fourth paragraph, Mr. Porter began by referencing, and I inserted, as identified and linked in the prefatory language of 8.2.31, section 8.1.12.
Could you send me those changes?
I will, yes.
Okay.
So it's just an indication of how we got to 8.1.12 there. And then the last sentence in that same fourth paragraph, it talks about me referencing 8.1.7. I didn't do that. I only referenced, in 8.1, I only referenced 8.1.12.
Oh. Okay, well, whatever your recollection is, I'll
Yeah.
make that change.
So,
Okay.
Jonathan, can I ask, so should that sentence read, he noted section 8.2.25, which also contains a finding and mandates section 8.1.12 apply? Is that the way you want it worded?
Yeah,
Okay.
just delete the 8.1.7 reference. And then page 9, first sentence, says it is not good practice, and I inserted for senior housing or aging in place to permit this grade.
Where was that?
First sentence, page 9,
Oh,
top of the page.
Wait, my page 9 doesn't have what you just said.
Oh, maybe, I've got an older copy. Did
No,
this change?
That's what's in the, we were given. It's page 9, the end of
Yeah, it's a,
sentence starting on the prior page.
okay.
okay. Oh, I see. So you'll send me that change?
Yep.
right?
So it's just referencing aging in place, senior housing.
Okay.
Then the middle of that page, let's see, 1, 2, 3, fourth paragraph, Mr. Poor also discussed Section 8.2.20, which provides that soil erosion should be minimized by integrating the development into the existing terrain, insert, and by reasonably retaining natural grades and soil cover. Again, it's just referencing the bylaws. And this is all written out. Then, next paragraph, Mr. Poor also focused on the 20 to 20-foot sheer ledge at the entry, which could be an attractive rather than unattractive, an attractive nuisance and fall hazard. I inserted "and fall hazard."
Where did you want fall hazard to be inserted?
After getting rid of "un" in the word attractive, just be an attractive nuisance and fall hazard. Because the point of that isn't that the ledge is unattractive, the point of it is it's unsafe.
So unattractive nuisance and fall hazard.
Could be an attractive nuisance and fall hazard.
And then the sentence consists,
And I think that's it.
so then the sentence continues with, in the absence of any guarantee that there will be no falling rock or ice from that ledge face over time.
Right.
Okay. Should that sentence be broken up? That's an awful long sentence.
I'll let Marnie decide that.
When I review this, I'll go
Huh?
over that. When I review Jonathan's changes, I'll look at that sentence and I...
Yeah, because that's practically,
So I felt those were important content clarifications. That's it.
Does anyone else have any,
Yes, I do.
okay?
So on page 11, third paragraph up, Mr. Whedon indicated that it should be he could not make the finding required by section 82313.
Yes. Okay.
okay, Mr. Wheaton indicated that, what did you say, Bill, please?
That he could not make the finding.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, yes, back on, in the paragraph above that, there's also a misspelling of my name.
Oh,
That little bugaboo again.
it's a, well, it still says Wheaton, though.
Not in writing,
It's not,
only by sound. H is silent. Okay, so that's the 1, 2, 3, fourth paragraph up, last sentence.
I saw that, yes. Apologies. I do know how to spell your names. I just don't type accurately all the time.
oh, the H just didn't go down.
Okay.
Page, are you finished, Bill?
Yes, I am finished, thanks.
Page 12, last paragraph, next to last sentence. He noted the removal of the ledge and trough traffic would be an issue, but that the impact of the development that he could live, I could live, thank
With it.
God.
Could live with?
Yes, could live with.
Got it? Any other comments about the minutes?
Oh,
From Jonathan?
Those are just my written comments
Right.
that I went over.
So do I have a motion to approve the minutes subject to the incorporation of the corrections and amendments? A motion to approve the minutes from the September 13th, 2022 meeting of the Planning Board?
So moved.
I second.
So we'll do a roll call vote on this. Jonathan Poor,
Aye.
Bill Wheaton,
Aye.
Emil Dahlquist,
aye.
Rick Mitchell,
Aye.
Richard Boroff,
Aye.
Pat Norton,
Aye.
and Marty Crouch, aye.
I can vote because it's
You attended that meeting. Okay, so we're in good shape with our agenda. So I do have a question, and maybe, Rick, you are the person to answer this. At town meeting, the proposal to allocate monies for a strategic plan for the Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary and elsewhere was tabled, and apparently another funding source was identified. Do you have any information that you're at liberty to share with us about the status of that process?
Be more than happy to. My understanding is that the town manager identified some of the Recovery Act funding that would and could be used for a strategic study of the highest and best uses for the property, the 103 acres at the seminary. So that's why they removed it from the warrant, which was originally intended to take those funds from free cash, so that if that approach will not require free cash. So the two parties, Town of Hamilton Board of Selectmen, represented by the town manager, Joe Demelowitz, and Sean Farrell, chair of the select board, and representatives from the seminary have agreed to jointly fund a strategic planning analysis of potential uses of the property. The amount of the contract is still, I think it has not been signed yet, but it's about approximately $80,000 study that will take 3 months. They're fast tracking this. It will include 2 public meetings to engage the public, identify what this whole process is about. 61 abutters have already been identified. They had previously done an admirable job of organizing and getting the information about this and what the seminary was doing and what the seminary is not doing. So they are very much involved, and as the schedule now exists, they're proposing to kick off the contract next week with a walkthrough of the properties to assess what's there, what's the condition of the properties, how are those properties being used, is there an opportunity to repurpose those properties, and if so, do some really back-of-the-envelope economics on potential costs to reuse those properties or rehab them or potentially make changes to them. So as an aside to that, I don't know if people know, but the Zoning Board of Appeals and the applicant for the 210 units of affordable housing, the Harbor Lights proposal was withdrawn because I think they recognized that it wasn't going to pass muster from the ZBA. The ZBA said they would potentially approve the change of use, but not the rezoning that was required to make that project viable. So that is off the table. This,
What was the required zoning change?
they needed to separate it off from the property,
Right,
so it became a separate,
with a different zoning level than the...
Actually, my recollection, and please excuse me for interrupting, my recollection was that, because I attended the meeting via Zoom, is that Harbor Light was seeking two things. One, a change of use so that the dormitories could be repurposed for affordable housing. But
Right.
they needed a variance for the size of the, the lot size.
okay.
Something,
Yes,
I
yes.
think they were seeking a
That would be true.
variance.
And then the ZBA shows no inclination to do this?
Correct.
Correct. They were,
Bill-
well,
Bill
Bill
basically
Bowler
said
I'll
he-
give you the change of use, but not the variance.
Right, Bill basically said that, so, and it was clear that the ZBA was not in support of it, the neighbors were not in support of it, the town was not in support of it. It just, it was not supported, just did not provide enough information of how and when this was going to be built and the impacts to the town, and
They did not see the advantage of 40 units that already exist as opposed to get to our quota? It wasn't explained to them carefully? Why would you, I mean, I'm just,
well, the problem was that, well, there were a number of problems. Harbor Light started out in their first presentation with saying that they were going to make it market rate housing with 25% affordable. The next meeting, they said, oh, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to make all 210 units affordable.
there are 210 in just that lower section? Or there are
No,
210?
There are
There's,
buildings A through F.
6 dormitory buildings
There are
in 3 clusters.
Right. So, but they were very vague about when that was going to happen, how that was going to happen, where the financing was going to happen, because it was not going to be a Chapter 40B. The seminary, to be accurate, was not clear about whether it was going to retain buildings E and F for future housing. So it was very sketchy as to what was going to be happening with that property and when that was going to be happening and what the impact was going to be on the neighbors, on the seminary, if it was going to stay or not stay. There were too many big questions that nobody was able to answer. And so the idea of a strategic study was,
Which might include converting
Yes.
those units to 40B, but
yes,
it's...
absolutely. Well,
So,
it's
okay.
not, it wasn't originally proposed as a 40B, so let's make sure that we're being clear on that. So yes, one of the tasks of the consultant will be to consult with Harbor Light, because there is the potential that one of those buildings or more could be
40B, that was our original...
drop the 40B.
I think,
It
Bill,
could
that-
be something.
Yeah, I think the problems were that a piecemeal approach could be very prejudicial to the town's interest and also very prejudicial to the abutters, because if you proceeded down the avenue of having affordable housing, that would generate some level of traffic. But if in a year or so there was some commercial development, that could produce even more traffic, and so the abutters would always be playing catch-up. So the idea really is to look at the property as a whole and put it together as part of a package.
It was mentioned that the absence of comprehensive planning is what got us the 9 lots along Bridge Street. That's exemplary of a piecemeal approach.
Right.
Right, and not only that, it would have compromised the potential value of the property if you're already selling off pieces saying, sorry, you can't use this, you can't use that, you can't. So
That
the
makes
idea
sense.
is to go back to the drawing board. The seminary is kicking in funds to make this happen. They and I think everybody would like to see this move expeditiously, but make sure that the abutters are very much involved, as well as other town boards and committees, and the planning board especially, because the hope is that by January, this strategic study will be finished and presented to the public and say, given what we've seen, our economic analysis, market analysis, assessment of the property, underlying zoning, that we believe the following uses would be the most advantageous to the
They're
seminary.
going to give
Economic-
options, or are they going to present a single proposal, or are they going to?
No, they're going to look at, I believe
some
they will
options.
present options. They'll do a screening, and then, in the public session, say, we've looked at these items, we've ruled out or ruled in some of these potential uses. What do you think about these? Is this something that you could live with? And then come back at the end with, say, well, given what we've seen, heard, investigated, studied, here are the potential uses we think would yield a benefit to both the seminary in terms of economic proceeds from a sale of the property, but also consistent with the best interests of the town. The planning board's going to get involved when, in fact, there's an interpretation that says, okay, so, and nobody knows what those uses are. Could be mixed use, could be all residential, partial residential, all commercial. We don't know. And so at some point, that conclusion has to be turned into zoning. So that's where this board is going to get involved. Now, the hope is, and it's only a hope at this point in time, is that the board can then begin deliberating what this potential bylaw is, and what form it will take, and how it will be utilized, and can it be done in a thoughtful, careful process, and would it be ready for annual town meeting? So those are sort of the issues that are going to be up in the air. But that's what it's designed to do, is to bring the two parties together, to actually be talking to one another, have a third-party consultant do this analysis so that everybody and it knows what's going on and what potential uses could emerge from it and what the cost benefits might be to the town and the seminary.
So how much time do they have between now and town meeting to get all this done?
Well, they want to be done by mid-January.
And they're going to start now, and they're not even sure what they're starting?
The target is to start next week.
Yeah. Okay. You think they can get it done?
That's the target.
Okay. God bless them, and hope they do it.
Rick, do you know that the meeting happened during, unfortunately, the morning of town sports, where hundreds of families who would have otherwise attended were tied up in their kids' sports activities. So me and a bunch of other people I know that were interested weren't able to attend and haven't yet looked at the recording. Was our investment with the seminary contractually tied to any kind of agreement on what happens in the future with this property? Or are we operating on good faith that this partnership lasts through the process and the town of Hamilton will be involved in shepherding whatever ultimately happens with that site?
We're operating on good faith. The president, Scott Sundquist, is part of this committee, as well as the Ken Barnes, who's the project manager, who's managing the move off of the campus to find new quarters in Boston. Scott has said we are operating on good faith. We want to maximize the revenues to ourselves, but we also want to leave a legacy to the town that we can be proud of, and that the people in town feel like they got due consideration, and they got the best outcome that they can. Now, at any point, and I think this is important to remember is, and Marnie, you can certainly chime in here, the seminary is on a short leash financially. They have stated, Scott Sundquist said to me over breakfast, they intend to be off that campus by 2024. So that really leaves next year and maybe some part of the following year for them to vacate that property. Now, at any point, they could say, we've reached the end, or the banks are calling the notes, or whatever happens, interest rates are too high, we can't function anymore, we're selling the property to the Toll Brothers. That could happen. But the feeling was we better take action now to see if we can engage both parties, see if we can come up with a compromise that meets the needs of both parties, and do it in a very public, transparent way so that the community and especially the butters know what's going on, are involved in the discussions. So no, there's no contractual agreement.
It's my understanding,
Other than the written agreement that they will pay the town for their share of the study, no matter what.
Rick, it's my understanding that there's an attorney at KP Law who's familiar with form-based codes, but also familiar with, I presume, drafting zoning bylaws. And I'm wondering if he has involved in this process, because the time frame that you outline is really short. I mean, and whatever
it's very aggressive.
were to come before the planning board, unless it comes in a format that we can work with, it's going to just
Right.
It won't happen.
Oh, no,
I mean,
agreed.
The last, and I don't want to raise a sour note, but when the representatives of the seminary came the last time, it was just kind of a, let's do this.
Right. Well,
Okay.
it was sort of looking at it.
Let's change the zoning to commercial. It's like, well, wait a minute, it's not, we can't
Right.
just, I mean, we're talking public hearings and the whole 9 yards.
And hence the strategic plan, because we, at least in my discussions with you and other board members, were going, okay, you want to change the zoning, but we don't know what's viable.
Right.
So-
My thinking is that.
When did that happen?
When did what happen?
What you were just discussing, when they came before the board?
Oh, Merwin Walters came before the planning board, and,
When?
6 months ago?
something like that,
something like
yeah.
April.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyhow, I
I think that's a good suggestion.
that's really
So-
important if he were involved, because he could probably provide a lot of.
Do you know his name?
I have his name, I could get it for you. Emil, do you know his name? Can you?
Yeah, his name is Jonathan Witten, Witten. He'd be an excellent person to assist the town.
So I'm thinking that that he should be involved from the begining, so that
Absolutely,
So that-
absolutely.
so that he.
That's going to be the most critical part of this whole thing. And the other thing I hope is that the planning board is really involved in periodically going through this whole process. So we have a chance to input at various levels, not just at the end or twice before the final submittal.
But his advice would be well worth seeking, because there can be a strategic plan, but if the execution of it is problematic from a legal point of view, it will go nowhere.
Oh,
And-
absolutely.
And he will
Right.
have probably a
Right.
pretty sophisticated understanding as well about the financing for different options and that type of thing. My understanding, he's a very accomplished individual, and not just an attorney, but a planner as well. So,
Rick, a couple questions. That's all, it's zoned 1 acre now, right? 40,000?
Yeah,
believe so,
R1B.
yeah.
R1B. Was there any discussion, did the possibility of a town having a right of first refusal ever come up? No.
That hasn't come up in discussion because that would be like the third rail, because this town has no appetite for buying huge chunks of land. Neither does it have the budget to do that. But it certainly could. I mean, part of the study is going to look at.
No, I didn't mean a right of first refusal, right of first refusal to buy the land. Doesn't mean the town's going to convert it to a park.
Can you take your mask off? I can't.
It doesn't mean the town is going to convert it to a park.
Oh, no, no, no.
They might just decide to go with one development plan as opposed to another, even though the first one is a little more profitable, and the way they'd exercise that is if they had a right of first refusal, then they could.
Yeah, I think it's certainly worth discussion, and it's not, everything's on the table. And that's certainly worth bringing up and saying, is the town willing and can it come up with the funds to take an option on the property, and get them to agree that we have whatever, 90 days to, exercise a purchase of the property at an appraised value. So, given how the town,
yeah, obtaining a right of first refusal would be a little problematic. I mean, generally, an entity like the seminary doesn't give them away. Usually, you have to provide consideration of some sort.
Oh, yeah, yes, you have to buy the right.
And so it could be the subject of negotiation, because the seminary is short of cash, so their contribution could be a right of first refusal, but as a practical matter, could the town exercise such a right of first refusal? The value of that land is not going to be insignificant under any scenario. I mean, that's a large a parcel of land. It has significant value. Its value will depend on the use, but regardless, where the town would obtain those kinds of monies to exercise a right of first refusal would be a real question. And just go back to the DePerry's property, and how the town was thinking of trying to acquire that property, and that really fizzled, if you recall.
Well, there's actually two parts to the money problem. The first part is to obtain a source, and the second part would be to get the town to vote on how to pay for that money.
Right.
So I don't see this, and this is a short period of time. It sounds like this is going to happen.
well, yeah, I
I think we're
don't.
getting ahead of ourselves,
Yeah,
so.
I think we need to, this is just starting, so I would like suggestions from this board as to how the board wants to be involved and how much information they want, and because at the end of the day, it's going to be the planning board that has to do the homework to make this turn into some kind of actionable.
Right, and the one thing the planning board can't really do is become a party to this.
Right, well, that's why I'm asking
We
this.
have to retain our independence, and so I think that we all have to be careful about what role that we take in this matter, because if we have to craft a bylaw or vote on a bylaw, we can't be back and forth with people who may have differing views as to what language should be included in that bylaw.
I don't think the strategic plan's going to get to that level.
No, but I mean, I think that we have to be mindful of that.
No, I get that, but on the other hand, what I don't want to have happen is, the strategic plan is done, and then members of the planning go, well, I didn't know anything about this, or wasn't involved in it. So we want to avoid that. Everybody needs to be, this has to be totally transparent.
Right,
and
right.
totally involving everybody that's going to have a decision-making role. So, because it's the planning board, it's the public, it's the abutters that really are going to decide what happens with that property. Now, and if they're not feeling like their voice was heard and their input wasn't taken and their thoughts not considered, then it's
Dead in the water.
dead in the water.
Patrick, Joe has not infrequently called all boards meetings, and maybe this could be, what these developments could be a subject for an all-board meeting. I'm not sure every board needs to be involved, but certainly the Conservation Commission, the Planning Board, the parties with real interest in what might happen here, that might be a vehicle for keeping everyone abreast of matters, and then, of course, we could always report back to our
But in
respective...
reality, we don't know what's going to happen yet, because
Right, I
they don't
know.
know.
No. It's about the
It's just-
process.
It's just to kind of stay abreast of where things are going, and to know whether we have to be prepared
But if it's
down
about
the
the
road.
process, yes, I
Yeah.
think we can do that. We
Yeah.
can set the process
That's
up.
what she's talking about, is what is the process to make sure the planning board is on top of what's going on
Okay.
as it happens.
Do any of you, and Emil, do you have any thoughts on how we should handle this?
Well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll put together some ideas and pass it by you and for distribution, maybe.
Sure.
So I do have some ideas on how to stay involved in this.
I certainly
While also you're concerned about getting too involved in it in a way that would compromise the ultimate decision. But yeah, I think there's a good way to do it, and I think everybody being on board is going to be very important. I think Rick is right about transparency. I think this really has to be wide open, especially as far as the public is concerned. And I think I'm happy to hear there are going to be at least 2 meetings. I would hope there would be a little bit more, but we'll see what happens. It might be just a flexible thing or a beginning, but I think this would be a process that's going to evolve in different ways. So I think it's a pretty exciting project to think about. But I'm pretty happy with what I've heard so far from Rick.
Well, good. So we can continue these informal discussions, and we'll see if Joe wants to get anything a little bit more formal. And then, of course, you're involved to some extent, and we can report back and as everyone agrees, be as transparent as possible. So let's move on from that. And so I think we have a consensus that our next order of business is to look at our stormwater management bylaw. So at our next meeting, which is October 18th, am I right? October 18th?
Correct.
Seeing, yeah.
I think we do want to start looking at the stormwater management bylaw, and I have 2 ideas with respect to that, and we'll welcome more. One is, I think that it would be very helpful if we took a site visit to the Bridge Street properties. And
Put your hiking boots on.
yeah, well, I mean, I don't know that we can actually
No, I'm just-
access the properties
And don't
themselves.
do it on a
but
rainy
you-
day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we can walk along Bridge Street. I think the real question is where we will park, so that we can meet and just walk along Bridge Street and get a real sense of why stormwater management is so important. And so, and in conjunction with that, I would like to, if we can find out who the actual owners are of the lots along Bridge Street.
Can I make a suggestion that at the last meeting related to this? I think we'd ask Patrick to in turn ask the town council to revisit the existing bylaw to see if when 9 lots are developed, in many cases by the same developer, and they're all attached, even though they're Form As, there's 2 lines in the stormwater bylaw that suggests such a development should be considered as a development and is not eligible to come in as a small development. It has to come in as a large development, and the criteria and so on for large developments is stricter. So,
Well, I think you got ahead of me, because
okay.
because that was my next point. So I think it would be really important to actually see those lots, to have the information as to who owns the lots, and whatever information that we can get from town council as to how this stormwater bylaw has been applied in the past, and not something verbal, but something in writing, so we know whether or not this is the language you're getting at, Bill. I'll just read the whole thing. A permit from the permit authority shall be required, excuse me, for any construction activity, including clearing, grading, and excavation that results in a land disturbance that will disturb equal to or greater than 1 acre of land, here's the important language, or will disturb less than 1 acre of land, but which is part of a larger common plan of development or sale, which will ultimately disturb equal to or greater than 1 acre of land.
Marnie?
Water?
Don't do anything on us.
I'll get you
No,
water.
oh, thank you.
To the point of determining the owner of the lots, all you need is the numbers of the lot. Are you okay?
I am, my throat
Okay.
was just dry.
All you need is the numbers of the lots, the address. You look it up on the assessor's database. Take 5 minutes. It's all listed there.
Okay, that's your
Oh,
job.
Okay, but I need the addresses.
I believe that the land, the original 19 acres, was purchased by a single entity, and that entity then subdivided it into 9 lots.
Yeah, we approved that.
We approved that, and so that was all done by one entity.
Right. That was a
And then
trustee of
since
the
then-
seminary that bought the land for $2
Right.
million.
Since then, those lots have been sold off in clusters, so 2 or 3 will be built upon by one, 2 or 3 will be built upon by some other developer. But the development was
That'll all
done by
show up.
one person.
That'll all show up.
Yeah, but that's not the point here. The point here is you're trying to capture that kind of, when you have more than one lot, you've got contiguous lots that have been sold and will be up for development. So we want to remove considering them individually.
And consider them as a
on
collective.
If they're less than an acre, and when they're contiguous to other pieces of property that are proposed for development or up for sale for development.
Well, the first way to start that still is to look at the assessor's database, because
No, we get that. We get that. That's easy to identify the land. The question is, what do you do then to enforce stormwater bylaws when you've got multiple pieces of property that are being developed?
Well, I would say if the interpretation that we're discussing now turns out to be correct, that they would have to cease development and come in and file that whole piece of land as one larger development, and then there'd be other standards about how much clearing could go on, and it'd also be, we would have much more review over the process
Right.
in addition.
Right.
Okay, so there are multiple steps here. So the first order of business, and maybe Patrick, you can help us on this, is to find out who owns each of these 9 lots.
I can do that.
And so, the next step is to find out from town council if Section 4 of the town bylaw has ever been utilized in any fashion particularly with respect to the language that we're talking about.
Let me hold you there for a second. Koppelman and Page Legal have only been under the employ of the town for maybe 2-3 years tops. Their experience doesn't go very far back into the exercise of stormwater management permits in the town. I am believing that probably long-term planning board members like Rick have a better recall of the projects that have occurred over time that have undertaken stormwater management permits.
I wouldn't count on that, Patrick.
No one else has that level of tenure.
Yeah, but I don't think the issue is what are the prior, from my perspective, what's happened in the past. The question is, what are we going to do in the future when we run into projects where
Right.
you've got exactly what's going on Bridge Street, and the current bylaw doesn't give the authority to regulate?
Well,
Your Chapter 4 interpretation, right?
right, and so the issue there is whether, and again, we have to, this chapter, section 4, it has an enforcement provision with respect to the 1 acre, but when I reviewed it, and I would have to review it again, it didn't seem to have any enforcement provision with respect to land which is part of a larger common plan of development or sale. So we'll have to look at that, and then the job, our job then is, we may not be able to solve the Bridge Street problem right now. I mean, with basically a cease and desist order, especially if there's no enforcement mechanism specific to that phrase in the bylaw. But what we can do in the future is define what this means so that people are on notice that we intend to use this provision, and it has a concomitant enforcement mechanism.
But can that be done before it's
No.
needed?
Well, that's the question is, if the pieces of property have been sold, no, because you can't backdate, you can't go back and.
It can't be retroactive.
So my question is, could we talk to somebody at KP Law who we have confidence in, who knows how to draft bylaws? Maybe was it Jonathan Whitten? And say, look, this is our problem. We've got this situation where we've got 9 pieces of property that fall outside the purview, that are being developed on a hillside, that are causing all sorts of potential stormwater management problems. How do we tighten this up so that when we get a multiple of properties being developed that are currently not covered by our bylaw, that we can cover them?
Right. That's an excellent idea, and I mean, the first order of business might be whether he sees any window for using this and taking some action.
You
with
mean
res-
under our current bylaw,
Right, and to see if it's
actionable?
actionable under our current bylaw, question 1. Question 2
what
would
is-
be how to tighten it up. And of course, that's something that would be worthwhile asking him, but it's also something we can do ourselves. I mean, we can certainly say, what is a common plan of development or sale? When I drive down Bridge Street and I see the same realtor marketing every one of the lots, I'm thinking, common plan of sale. And when I look on, say, different websites for property for sale in Hamilton, and I see that the proposed houses all look remarkably the same and have remarkably similar sales prices. So if we can't use Section 4 today for Bridge Street, we can certainly, with those observations in mind, define what a common plan of development and sale is, with reference to, is it being marketed by the same real estate agent? Is it being, are the properties that are going to be built remarkably the same? For example, similar to what would be in a traditional subdivision, there just happen to be along one road. So we can, using our own information that we have at our disposal and our own educational background, try and come up with a definition that will at least work in the future. If this language won't work today, we can tighten it up. So
Let's just start on this one step at a time.
Right.
And, have some good legal minds look at the current bylaw and say whether what's happened on Bridge Street is in fact correct, or whether they should have come in.
Right, and this can't be the first time that's happened in a town in Massachusetts, so there must be examples, and hopefully KP Law has the
Some
breadth
case
and
law.
depth of experience to say, I understand what you're telling us, we have reference to specific bylaws that we've drafted, or we can do the research to find them, to answer your question, and give you the language you need to tighten your bylaw to cover this instance. It shouldn't be that difficult. I mean, and I don't mean that we couldn't do it, but I'm going, well, okay, so we're all, well, except for you and anybody else that might be here that I don't know about, not lawyers, right?
Right.
So we could be putting together all sorts of language, and somebody comes and says, nah, that's not going to quite work. So I'm wondering if they start in the beginning to tell us, here's what does work, and here are examples of legally tested stormwater management bylaw language that covers your...
Right, and I don't disagree with you, Rick. I mean, I'd be curious as to whether this Section 4
Yeah.
is from some model bylaw, or whether,
Yeah.
when it was adopted, who was a drafter. You have no idea, do you?
I do not.
It's a wonderful
that's-
thing about small towns.
Well,
It's like,
and that's the
there it
and
is.
that's the thing is, somebody might have, like our predecessors 20 years ago, might have thought they had it covered, but
Oh, yeah, well, that's the nature of the legal
Right.
business. You think you have it covered until all of a sudden you don't. So,
Yeah, Marty, I've seen that other towns have done that, just as Rick was proposing. And they do it a lot of times by dealing with the three variables, the steep slopes, what percentage of that slope is one of the variables. The other one is the amount of clear cutting, and then eventually, what is the total impervious surface on the project to be built? Now, you can work with those three variables, I think, and come up, and I think we could do that, craft some kind of language in there as a beginning, as Bill was saying, to start to grapple with the conditions that we're apt to. The problem a lot of times now is that we're building on marginal pieces of land, so we're probably going to see more projects like this coming before us. But I think there are examples out there to follow, and I think it would be good to research a few and use them as and test them out to see how they work.
right. So, Emil, do you have any access to towns that may have bylaws that address these three variables? Or Jonathan, do you have any?
I have seen bits and pieces, but there's no kind of one-size-fits-all out there. So it's going to take some homework and some review with attorneys.
Right, right.
The steep slope piece is a variable and plays into other parts of the bylaw that needs strengthening. And then, the other measures that trigger the stormwater special permit are a little bit different, in the metrics in each town. So it's, like I say, it's not a one-size-fits-all.
Well, it'd be very helpful to get some input from town council. I don't think it would be realistic to think that the town council could make any kind of presentation or recommendation to us at our next meeting. But maybe, Patrick, you and I could speak and see, we could start with Robin and then see about her partners and see where we can go on this. But I think that it might be helpful to just throw some ideas out at our next meeting. So that would be one thing that we could put on our agenda if everyone just goes through this bylaw and identifies areas in it that they feel should be changed, or where a steep slopes, whether they can be addressed within this bylaw or whether it should be a separate bylaw. So I think,
I'm sorry, to be certain we're all looking at the same thing, what are the numbers of the bylaw you want to look at?
okay, the number of the bylaw, it's our town bylaw, it's chapter 29, stormwater management. So if you go on the town website and just put in a search,
Yeah,
town bylaw, you should be able to pull it up. And it's on page 56 of our town bylaws. So I think that at our next meeting, I think we should all, read through this bylaw really carefully and identify what areas that need to be improved. Clearly, section 4 is one, but if my recollection is correct, if there's no enforcement provision for that phrase, part of a larger common plan or development, that's a big hole. So if we put together our ideas as to the weaknesses in the bylaw and where we think it should be cleaned up at the meeting after October 18th, perhaps we could have town council let us know what their view of this bylaw is and how we can address any future Bridge Street issues. But in conjunction with that, I don't know how we could, do a formal view, or whether each of us should just park the car and walk and really familiarize ourselves with what's going on that site.
Yeah, I think just driving by, it's pretty clear what's happening.
It's very graphic.
Really
It's not
bad.
hard to imagine.
Well, I was thinking town council should see that, anyone who, there's nothing like a visual to highlight the imperative of getting this right.
One thing I'd like to add is just as we go through this process, it's obvious but important to remember to stay familiar and aligned with the state stormwater regulations and standards.
Absolutely.
So to keep using that as a reference all the way through the process.
Oh, and again, this is, to my point, Jonathan, I mean, this is where the references to the stormwater management policy can be much more explicit than it is in the bylaw now.
Yeah, there's an opportunity to create stronger linkages, so
Exactly.
that they align with and they harmonize with each other better.
Right, so I think that would be, if everyone goes through, and maybe we can even do, adopt a process similar to what we did for the decision, is if everyone goes through and makes proposed changes. They're not going to be cast in concrete until we can get town council to look at them. But if we use our own expertise and try and come up with some ideas that can be made more concrete with the advice of town council, I think it would be worthwhile.
So you mentioned the site visit, and just brought to mind and make an offer to the board, a tour of the New England Biolabs expansion that we're undergoing currently, which is applying a stormwater permit from the town of Ipswich and the state. And we could arrange for our civil engineer to be there. Gentleman works for Hancock Associates, and he's done the application both in this town and in Ipswich as well for a number of projects, and could be very transparent and share with some of the challenges that they've had in the application. And you could see the plan in process and actually installed on a construction site, and how it's managed. And that might bring to mind some changes that you might otherwise not think of, or could also be an opportunity to see an interesting application of a great estate bylaw.
Where is this property where this is?
It's just the New England Biolabs.
Oh,
campus.
they're just doing an expansion or something?
Yeah, that's right.
Very
We're
major
expanding the
one.
main lab campus by 100,000 square feet currently, so.
Well, could you look into that, and if you can get some information for our meeting next week?
Yeah, I've managed the site, so we could do it anytime.
You manage the site?
That's right.
That's why he's such an asset to the planning board.
1A on the way up to
Yeah.
Ipswich, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
Across from Appleton Farm. It's just an opportunity for the board to tour a
Can you
construction
take your
site.
mask off so we can hear you clearly? I'm sorry.
Sure. I'm just making an offer, since Marnie has mentioned a site visit to at the board's convenience, to tour the site and see stormwater prevention permit in action, talk to an engineer, and also see, I don't know, a good reference to what I think is a successful application of the Great Estate Bylaw
This is
for a
New-
property that would be similar to what you're looking at with Gordon Conwell.
This is New England Biolabs, right?
Correct.
And it's on Route 1A on the
It's across from
right-hand side.
Appleton
Huh?
Farm, across from Appleton Farm as you're going
Yeah,
north.
but I don't know where Appleton Farm is. I don't remember.
Just prior,
I drive it up every day, but I just go.
well, regardless of where it is, it's not far. It's probably about 5 minutes from here.
Entrance to Appleton Farm.
There's
Okay,
an
thank
opportunity
you.
for the board to tour the site if interested, so.
Are the board members interested? I would be interested
I
in.
think
To
anything
talk
that,
to the civil engineer would be very interesting.
yeah, anything that has practical application, I think is useful for the board. And what Bill was just pointing out is that Bridge Street's valuable because it has steep slopes. This is also valuable, but it doesn't have steep slopes, so it won't help us with our wrestling with steep slopes. But anything with practical application, I think, is a good,
Well,
is
the
a
more
good exposure.
educated we are, the more we'll be able to work with town council to get a good result.
Absolutely.
So maybe, Pat, probably this weekend wouldn't work, but the weekend following, on a early Saturday morning, we could do something if your civil engineer was available.
Probably more likely, well, we can try, see if the board proposes some dates. I'll reach out and see what's available.
Probably, if not early in the morning on a weekend, maybe late afternoon during the week. Would that be
Well, if it's
feasible?
late afternoon, it's going to start getting dark.
Right, I know, but I was thinking about like 3 or 4 o'clock, something like that.
Yep.
So you could let us know at our next meeting.
I'll let
So
you know.
I think we have some homework to do. I think we all have to become more expert on the nuances of stormwater management, and so we can proceed from there at our next meeting. And does anyone else have anything that they would like to put on the agenda for the next meeting?
I think that's going to be enough.
Okay. All right. Does anyone have any other new business?
Marnie, our next meeting is scheduled for the 18th. I just wanted to make sure everybody's aware that's 1 week away,
Right.
so.
And I won't be at that meeting, or I will try and make it, but I could be late, so, but it's not critical, so.
Right.
So the only thing that I would add, which I've mentioned before, is I agree that stormwater is the first priority, but I think right behind that is looking at the senior housing bylaw and its relatives while it's all fresh in our heads as far as how it worked out for us in this process.
And the other question is, do we want to revisit the flexible development bylaw that we got to the 5-yard line and then stopped?
Oh, I think they're tied together because the flexible development bylaw was so closely related to the senior housing
I
bylaw.
would encourage looking at them together as almost as a
Yes.
whole.
Yes. But we won't look at that until our decision is actually on file with our town clerk. I think that would be a good thing. So let's do stormwater management and get ourselves all lined up on how we're going to address that. And then with respect to the senior housing and the flexible development, perhaps for our meeting after that, we can, that would be, do you have the dates in front of you, Patrick? October 18th, it would be, I think, what's our next date after October 18th? Do you know? I don't have my calendar with me. It's in November, I think.
Looks like November
It's
1st.
Yeah, I believe it's the 1st.
November 1st, okay, thank you. Well, at that meeting, we could go through the senior housing and the flexible development bylaw and make notes as to where improvements could be made. So we can keep them, 2 tracks. And then the GPOD, we might want to look at that specific word. Okay, so for the next meeting, we'll focus on the stormwater management. The meeting after that, depending on when town council can make a presentation, we can start looking at the senior housing and the flexible development bylaw. So we have homework to do, and no one should, put off looking at the senior housing bylaw to see how it could be improved.
So when is the next, when are we back on schedule?
November 1st.
Okay, so it's going to be the 1st, the 1st and the 15th?
15th, right,
Of November.
Yes.
right.
Okay, so
Okay.
we're not going to look at this stuff at all during October.
Well, our next meeting is October 18th, and we're going to be looking at stormwater management.
Right. Okay.
Well, I think we've accomplished our purposes for this evening. So I'll consider, the agenda, and if I have any ideas that can expand on what we've discussed, I'll talk them over with Patrick, and I can always send a memo to the board explaining or detailing the agenda in a slightly different fashion if warranted, or maybe including other topics. So we'll be a little flexible on that, but right now, the focus of our next meeting will be stormwater management. The other things, I'd like to update the rules and regulations for the senior housing bylaw, and they would be pertinent to the flexible development bylaw. That's something that we really should consider, and maybe looking at our planning board webpage and making it a little more transparent, and then including information that might be on, like, the ZBA webpage, or that should be on our webpage, or at least having a reference to where additional information can be obtained, so that anyone who goes on our webpage can find things easily. So if no one else has anything more to add, anyone? I think I could entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We'll do a roll call vote. Jonathan Poor,
Aye.
Bill Wheaton,
Aye.
Emil Dahlquist,
Aye.
Rick Mitchell,
Aye.
Richard Boroff,
Aye.
Elizabeth Herr,
Aye.
and Marnie Crouch, aye. Unanimous.
We are adjourned.
Adjourned.